social gatherings. Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you, Kathy. Now, our main guest, Mr. Peter Payette, who is the Executive Director of IPR, as I'm sure you all know. He will be speaking to us about where we are now and some background on Peter. He joined public radio in Interlaken in 2000, directed IPR News beginning in 2001, and eventually became executive director in 2016. His job is to make sure IPR remains a vibrant source of music, news, and stories for the people of Northern Michigan and beyond. In his former role, he reported on a wide range of issues critical to the culture and economy of Northern Michigan. His work has been featured on NPR, Michigan Radio, and Bridge Magazine, and he's won awards from the Public Radio News Directors Incorporated, the Associated Press, and the New York Festivals. At the Interlaken Center for Arts, he's taught journalism and audio storytelling for students and adults. When he was young, Peter vacationed in Benzie County and became acquainted with IPR through radios that were always on in family cottages on the south shore of Crystal Lake. His wife, Sarah, is his biggest fan and a former educator who now works with teen parents. They have 4 children, and they all live happily in Traverse City, Kids Creek neighborhood. Please welcome Peter and look forward to hearing what you have to say.
Thank you, Carrie. Thank you for inviting me. I have heard very positive reports about Indivisible in Leelanau County from some of my colleagues who have spoken at these meetings, and I was honored to be invited. And I see you are all very busy and active in your community, and it's quite impressive. I feel like I sort of have to acknowledge that I didn't prepare slides today. There's a search for a vice president going on at Interlaken, and I attended one of the presentations of a candidate, and he used no slides. And I got to thinking about how often we're using slides and presenting and trying to force all this information on people in slides. So I've been trying just to speak to people more. And I do have one visual piece that Carrie will share a little further on in my presentation. But I really appreciated the title, Where Are We Now? IPR. It sort of felt like when someone asks you how you're doing, and then emphasizes that they really mean it and they really would like to know how you are doing. IPR, I feel, and I've been there for 25 years, is doing extremely well. And maybe that's not what you would expect me to say, given all that's happened over the last 6 months. But while the request of the administration and the approval of Congress to eliminate all federal funding was certainly intended as and is a body blow to the public media network across this country, I'm finding that it has really energized us and put wind in our sails. I find that public media and Interlaken Public Radio are really top of mind for people. The level of engagement with our community has come up fairly dramatically. The financial support that we've seen in the wake of the rescission vote has been, frankly, awe-inspiring. We're just a concern on many people's minds. And as I was thinking this morning about that, I mean, it certainly reached a crescendo in July when Congress voted. But I remembered, I think my first interaction with Indivisible was back in, I assume, 2017, when this, and I don't know if it was this chapter or another one, but somebody contacted me from a newly formed Indivisible chapter. And it sounded like at the meeting they had all sort of taken assignments for things to work on. And this person had chosen to investigate public media and what threats there would be to public media from the new Trump administration. And so Indivisible was out in front on this concern that now came and reached its climax in July. I'll just run through the basics. I see a lot of names I know here and faces that are familiar to me, and so I imagine many of you are quite aware. But the rescission eliminated all funding for public media that would go through the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. Interlochen Public Radio last year received about $300,000 from the CPB. We That was about 14% of our revenue. And I my sense, and we don't the way our fiscal year works at IPR, we really can say for sure by January where we are at, but um, my sense is our listeners will basically fill that gap for us this year. Um, that what that doesn't take into account would be a couple of things. There are some I guess we call them known unknowns. There are some costs that we are going to have to bear that used to be paid for by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, money that we did not see. So for instance, the Congress would appropriate a certain amount to CPB. CPB would give grants to stations like IPR. CPB would also separately pay for important things that the stations need. A simple example would be the right to play music on the radio. CPB has agreements with 6 music societies, so that basically I can walk into a studio and play any piece of music I want on our station. That contract is millions of dollars. It was never paid for. It was not money we saw. CPB will not be paying that. So the stations are working with NPR to transfer those agreements over to NPR, and eventually that bill will have to get paid. And so there will be costs coming to us that we can anticipate, though we don't know what they are. Um, the other thing that's happening, and maybe Carrie, you could share that email. Um, we were looking at this week, and it was just kind of striking because it really shows the carnage across the industry.
Sorry, I thought you were gonna share, you were going to share it.
Oh, I can do that. Am I? I
Yeah,
absolutely
Sam
am
put you
ready.
on as host, so you can share it because
Yeah,
you
I
couldn't
can
do
do it.
anything with it.
Very good. Let's see. Is that what I want? Okay. Forgive me. I will be ready to do this in one moment. Mhm. Aha. Okay. So the Corporation for Public Broadcasting sent this out this week, and I was actually looking at it on my phone, which was really dramatic because this is a list of all the closures and cuts that we're seeing across the country. A PBS station in New Jersey closing, GBH in Boston laying off 45 people, KQED, Houston, Cincinnati, on and on. At the top of the mid and small market stations, you'll see there, this one really got my attention, was Penn State closing down its service. I mean, that's a major uh, Big Ten university that says, we're out. Um, and you see the list just goes on and on and on, with significant cuts. Of course, tribal broadcasters are really hard pressed, and on down to some national organizations. Um, I think I will stop sharing now. I mean, so what we have across the country is a really inequitable system, quite frankly. And so it was a little, at IPR, we have felt, I don't know what the word for it is, but the support that our listeners have provided have really Yeah, and let me open up the chat here. And yes, Rob, I can share that. In fact, Carrie has a copy, but I'll make sure you have that. You just have a lot of pain and suffering in other places, and then you have communities like ours that can really step up and step into the breach. And on this day, in fact, we had gotten word of a fairly large endowment gift that we expect to get because it had passed an important committee vote at the foundation. And so we're just really thriving at a time where we see a lot of pain among our peers, and we don't know what will come of all this, and at what point, we might see dominoes falling, and this whole system that's tied together being pulled on. But in sort of reflecting, I saw Carrie mentioned the series here with you was, how the local arts and news is doing under the Trump administration. I mean, we are doing the same things uh, today that we were working on in July, that we were working on 6 months ago, and a year ago. Certainly, the administration is producing news that we are covering, like cuts to the SNAP Ed and the elimination of major conservation grants that were funding projects. We reported on Crawford County deputizing the sheriff's officers to enforce immigration rules. A lot of that is happening, but our priorities and our dreams are what they were, and that's to really create a strong and exquisite media that produces excellent journalism and helps the arts and culture communities in this region thrive and makes Northern Michigan a better place to live. I was really struck. We received a gift from somebody, I think in Grand Traverse County, and he just wrote a comment um, with it. He said, "Public radio's love of ordinary people shows just how extraordinary so many of us truly are." And this comment made it into a donor letter that a solicitation letter some of you may see. And I shared it with the staff, and I said, boy, this really um, speaks to me. And then I reached out to the individual and I said, I told him that I had shared his comment with his gift with the staff. And I said, would you care to elaborate? Because I found your comment interesting. And so he wrote back and he said, "I feel strongly that real and lasting change must take place at the smallest levels. Unfortunately, most of us have decided to put our emotional and intellectual energy into the federal and global levels. I believe the breakdown at our global and national levels is a direct result of the breakdowns at our smallest levels. Person, family, community, township, city, state are the order of attention I think is most important." And I think that kind of sums up uh, what we think at IPR. I mean, certainly we are going to continue to be a proud carrier of national programming, NPR's news work, of some shows on our music side, on classical IPR. But we think the kind of the shift in public media is going to the local level. We definitely see that in research with younger generations. When I started in this business, I mean, what was really important to people was national news and international news, and sort of local was the kind of the cherry on top or a perk. Now with millennials and Gen Z, we see that they're in order of priority, the thing that they're most interested in is connecting with their local community, and they're looking to public media to help do that. So that's kind of our shift. Um, we're looking to do things that broaden our reach, that connect with new audiences, and particularly leverage new partners. A few examples of these would be a news effort we have going on with Bridge, Michigan. We have created a collaborative news network in the region, and Bridge and IPR are over the last few months have collaborated on, I don't know, a dozen to 15 stories that were done and then offered up to stations across, not stations, to any news organization across the region that wanted to publish them. So we did a piece on the destruction that ORVs are causing in state forests because they opened up the two tracks in the state forest to ORVs, and those vehicles have a propensity to leave the two track and go into the woods. And the DNR has basically saying this is now a disaster that they can't manage. That story through the different organizations that published it, I think it reached more than 40,000 people on web platforms and in newspapers. The Alpena News, somebody pointed out to me, the Alpena News, people would typically open up the outdoors section and they would read, press releases there. And on this day, they got a enterprise story about a real serious problem going on on our state lands. Um, the reporting comes back to us the day when the federal government shut down. Our reporting about the closure of Sleeping Bear Dunes was done by Jakob Wheeler at the Glen Arbor Sun, along with another reporter from the Leelanau Enterprise, whose name I'm not remembering. But so it's becoming an exchange that lifts all boats and makes our ecosystem better. Um, on the music side, we have so many initiatives. A real key one that we're quite proud of that we partner with the Glen Arbor Arts Center on is a program called the Soundgarden Project, where we bring chamber musicians to Northern Michigan in the summer, and we get them out there engaging the public in ways that are almost unheard of. They don't just go out and play in a park and sort of get attention from people who come by. They'll go into the hardware store and they'll walk up to people who are looking at paint and they'll do a little exercise where they say, okay, we'll play a piece of music and you tell us what color you think matches this piece of music. And so the person will do that, and then they'll say, okay, now we'll play the piece of music again, and we'll be thinking about that color as we play. And then afterwards, they all talk about how the music is affected by the color that's been discussed and is on the minds of the musician after it's been suggested. In Glen Arbor, these musicians are there for more than a week. So it's not just some musicians passing through and giving a concert, it's musicians residing in a town and are sort of a part of community life. And it's just a completely new way to make music, kind of weave it into the fabric of life in Northern Michigan. We have a similar partnership for that program up in Sheboygan. We've worked with Frankfurt and other communities on it as well. I think I will leave it there. I also have a list I was asked to come with ways that, how you can be involved, how you can help, but maybe I will look at the questions or invite questions if we want to engage conversation. And I didn't check the time, Carrie, so keep me aware of how much time we have.
I think we have about 5 minutes or so for questions.
Okay. Yeah.
There were some that were given to us earlier, specifically, will 1A and Fresh Air be cut because of funding cuts?
I would think those would be fairly low down on the list if we were. We are not currently reviewing any. We're not looking at any cuts. I don't see those as being programs we would look at cutting. No.
Okay. Same person said that they really appreciated the increased airings of the National Writers Series recordings.
Oh, great.
That too, really,
Yeah.
it's wonderful to have those. And having raised the money that you did this year to protect you with the funding cuts, is there anything different you will do in the future?
So we did eliminate back in May, we eliminated one position, and that position has remained. It's not coming back. We are at this time. We are not looking at any other changes. The changes in programming we made were changes that were in the works for a year. They were not really financially motivated at all. I mean, we certainly didn't want to increase costs, but they were about the programming. So at this time, we are not looking at for cost savings by cutting or changing anything. A big question will be at what level the increased support can be maintained. And so it may be a different conversation at IPR a year from now, but for the near term, our fiscal year ends on May 31st. I mean, we believe we're that our audience has really taken care of this service for this year, and we're fairly optimistic that the increased support we're seeing, a lot of it will be renewable next year, uh, and so we should be able to maintain our operation. However, as I said, there are sort of unknowns in our industry, and as all this kind of works its way through the system, we can't foresee everything that will happen and what that would mean for us.
Other questions? You've said so much, and I think you probably covered everything everyone was thinking of. I would just like to say that I'm a huge fan of Points North. Don't let anything happen to that. And I can't thank you enough for coming and sharing all this with us.
Yeah, thank you for inviting us. I did, the list on the ways you can engage with us. Obviously, we appreciate your financial support. I'm sure many people on this call have helped us get where we are today. Um, one group we are, oh, I see a raised hand. Jill?
Yes, I just wondered if the reason that, say, Penn State or the universities are closing their stations are because of finance or because of the administration trying to influence universities as, part of their
I
issue.
think I think it's financial, especially stations like Penn State that have a PBS affiliate that they are operating. Television is much more expensive, and the portion of the CPB money that goes to public television is much greater. So whereas we have a problem in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, even a mid-size, small to mid-size public television station has a seven-figure hole. So I think that is the explanation.
So we
That
might
would
have a problem with Central Michigan?
perhaps I'm not, I've reached out to WCMU and I have not heard much about what they're thinking or doing. Might be worth asking.
Thank you.
Stay tuned, as they say. So
Yeah,
thank
so
you, Peter.
just on our list, we would really our corporate support has been flat, where our listener support has has now more than doubled over 7 or 8 years, and we just are trying to figure out how to talk to businesses. So anyone who owns a business or knows someone who owns a business that wants to have strong public media in this region, we would love to talk to that person. Um, I would say another thing too is really supporting the organizations that we partner with. We partner with a lot of arts organizations like the Glen Arbor Arts Council. We do all kinds of things in Frankfurt because we've developed such a great relationship with the Garden Theater and with Oliver Art Center. So maintaining those small organizations, and they're all really struggling right now too, because we're a big regional entity, and so we really benefit from good partnerships. There are volunteering opportunities for drives and at other times. We have an advisory council, and I would offer a special invite to anyone who has experience with governance structure and advisory councils. We're always trying to up our game and make that group more effective. And uh, so, the community can play a bigger role through it. We're very interested in making IPR, porous and kind of engaged with the community and having kind of an open door approach where where we can do things collaboratively. And our advisory council is a kind of a place where a lot of that starts. So that's another opportunity. That's what I have.
Thank you. My guess is you might get some people following up on that. It's very interesting. Thanks for coming, and let's move on. Sam?
Good morning. Thank